welcome back to another Conductor Sunday live stream. I am joined by the one and only Jared from Capture the Magic. Always great to have him on. We have a fantastic live stream tonight. We're going to be talking about 4 interesting articles coming from the Walt Disney World side and Universal side. And we're going to talk about some of the updates with Universal Hollywood that's going to come later in the show. We're also going to try to squeeze in there HHN, final thoughts on that. Jared, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Where can everyone find you on social media?
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It's always a good time. I'm at Cap the Magic everywhere, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever, YouTube, all that stuff like that. So you can find me, and I don't tweet much. I don't like fighting with random strangers on the internet more than I have to. So most of my stuff comes from YouTube at Cap the Magic, but that's where you can find me.
Absolutely. And Jared has a lot of amazing videos he's done. I love he's kind of what I take it as. He's kind of like our Hey Bricky out there in the Florida parks. That's how I see you as.
Well, I appreciate that. No, it's I end up doing daily videos, which I don't think I initially intended to do, but it just kind of became a thing, and I was like, it's fine. Just it's fun. I enjoy it, and if people like listening to them, that's even better. So I just rant into the camera and talk to myself.
Hey, you might as well, right?
Yeah.
So I'm your host, Theme Park Conductor. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Bluesky, TikTok at Theme Park Conductor. You can find me on X at Theme Conductor. You can also find me every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we have wonderful guests like Jared from Capture the Magic and so many others, where we break down Universal, Disney news, HHN, which is in a few weeks, and we are going to be back on Jared's channel very soon, me and Tommy Toon World, to do a reaction video to me and Tommy being at Horrors Unleashed. And believe me, during this live stream and next week's live stream, I know Mondo went. He's a lucky SOB. I'm just going to say that. But I'm not going to spoil anything. If you want to go look at spoilers, then go look at his content, but I'm not doing it to myself. I want to see a first reaction. But
I'm really curious what your guys' reactions are to that, because it's one of those things where they're already doing that second one in Chicago, so they must feel very strong about it and just how similar it is to Halloween Horror Nights. It's I find the whole thing very interesting.
100%. So let me zoom in here, and then Jared, I'm gonna have you take it away for us. By all means.
Can do. Yeah. So I did a video on this one, and this one's wild to me. So there was, if you're familiar with Disney World, you have the ferry boat. If you're at TTC, which is getting to Magic Kingdom is always kind of a pain, where you have to go. You can't really go directly to Magic Kingdom unless you're taking a bus or something, but you take the ferry boat or the monorail over to Magic Kingdom. And on last Wednesday night, my wife was actually at Disney World during this, but she wasn't at Magic Kingdom. But there was a ferry boat accident, and apparently it was a very bad one because it was at night. There was rain going on and storming a little bit, but it seems from eyewitnesses that the ferry boat hit the dock like almost at full speed and it was reported there was 19 people at least taken to the hospital, at least 4 or 5 seriously injured, and it was they even said in the article there was multiple jurisdictions of response, like fire departments and police departments that showed up, which means they probably had a ton of 911 calls. And it was quite a chaotic scene is what it looks like. They have some of the quotes in this article are people saying that, I think that one right there. Yeah, it said people were flying forward upon impact. I guess that there was a lot of people screaming and really hurt badly. And then they said all went downhill on top of that because apparently the Disney cast members on the ferry boat didn't communicate anything to the passengers during or after it happened either. And Disney is being dead silent on this. So it's a very it's scary. I've ridden this ferry boat tons of times, and it's just it's very unfortunate. And there were some instances they said of strollers with kids getting falling over, kids hitting their heads on things, and it's a bad situation, undoubtedly. And I don't know. We'll probably eventually hear about what happened, and maybe I'm sure multiple lawsuits are going to come from this.
Oh, definitely. And it's something very unfortunate because it's another way of transportation for the Walt Disney Resort. And just the mere fact that how big it is, this ferry boat, and I'm sure several others that they use, is such a key vital thing to get from point A to point B. And the fact that they had something like this go down, because I even mentioned, I think it was the last time you were on the channel, was the fact that since we lost the Rivers of America, and since basically there's been aerial photos courtesy of Bio Reconstruct of the Liberty Bell, and I think the little ferry boats that they used to get from Tom Sawyer's Island to Liberty Square there, was it's all in the backstage area. It hasn't been dismantled. It's just sitting there doing nothing. And the funny thing I mentioned was, they could actually retrofit the Liberty Bell and make that into like almost like a on boat dining experience where
Yeah.
you're on the canal, you're on the Liberty boat, you're having dinner, possibly dessert. It's a dinner dessert package, and you can be on the Liberty Bell watching the fireworks go off above Magic Kingdom and all that. I thought it was going to be a great idea because Disney loves making money, but
Mm-hmm.
now with this going down, I don't know, the longer they keep quiet, if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
I'm sure it's lawyers, because I for a very brief amount of time I worked in insurance. I say brief, for like 4 weeks out of college, and I was like, I can't do this. So I know a little bit. So usually they'll tell you, if you get in an accident, you don't get out of the car and say, oh, my fault, because then they can apply blame. So I'm sure the Disney lawyers are like, don't say a word about this, but it still doesn't mean, it's still not a good look publicly to not talk about it. And then it's also like the response, like multiple people in this said that the cast members just, they really didn't have any communication to people as it happened. And then the real question is, like, it really is only two things, in my opinion. I mean, I guess it could be three. It could be the weather, but if it's the weather, then you shouldn't have had the ferry boat out there in the first place. But it's either the captain's fault or some mechanical issue with the boat. Either way, it's on Disney, so I'm sure there's going to be some big payouts out of this, especially with the amount of injuries it looks like that were pretty significant. But yeah, and they're not even talking to local media. Fox 35, I think, reported like Disney's not even talking to them either. So they're just being hush on the whole thing.
And it also brings up another excellent point, with all this legal that's more and definitely going to happen. So many people did get injured on this transportation. First of all, are they going to, and again, we're just speculating because, like Jared said, Disney hasn't said one word about it. But are they going to temporarily shut this thing down, which is going to cause massive delays, and Disney's going to have to come up with something shorthanded? Or, like Jared said, you know, they're not saying anything. That's the problem. We could speculate all day long what they could do, but if they decide to stop the ferry boats for a little bit to, obviously do an investigation and all that, and whether, like Jared said, it was the captain's fault, it was something mechanical on the boat, which, in my personal opinion, if it was something mechanical, here's where I have the problem. Those ferry boats should be checked multiple times a day.
Yeah,
Especially since it's a main transportation vehicle.
absolutely. I mean, I think if you're Disney, your best case scenario coming out of this is that it was just user error, and the pilot, the captain just messed up or whatever the issue.
Sure.
Your worst case is, because then you're going to get in the conversation about maintenance, which has already been a topic at the Disney parks, about how that's declined over the years. And if this was like a known thing, like if they've known there was an issue with this for a while and it wasn't fixed, like there's a lot of ways this could go. But I think I saw WWNT, and I just looked for it. I couldn't find it. But I think the ferry boat, this one, even that was involved in this, was back up and running already. So I don't think they paused the ferry boats or anything of that nature, from what I've heard. But yeah, when you get to TTC, it's either you take the ferry boat or you take the monorail. And so if they did shut down those ferry boats, those monorails would become, you'd have some significantly high wait times for the monorail if you didn't have the ferry, because usually the ferry boat's quicker to get over to Magic Kingdom than taking the monorail, because you can just put hundreds of people on it.
Oh, definitely. Well, I want to ask you about that before we go to our next story. If for whatever reason they did shut this down and they needed more investigation than what they thought, and they decide to use the monorail system temporarily, how many monorails do you think Walt Disney has in place? Like, do they have just 2 of them? Do they have 4 of them? You know, if they had to sit there and use that as a temporary situation, because I think
they have 12 total.
12.
And some of those are going to be like, you've got the Epcot loop, you've got the resort loop. So I don't know how many they typically have in storage or out of it, but I would assume if they were to shut those ferry boats down, they would probably ramp up the amount of monorails they would run. But yeah, they have 12, but I don't know how often they're running. Like, I know different ones going for service at different times and things like that, but they do. They used to have, I think they used to have 15, and then over the years they've kind of cut back on them.
Well, think about it, because they would probably use the monorails a lot, and then wouldn't they use the Skyway as well? Because the Skyway probably is another transportation.
The Skyliner runs from Hollywood Studios and it runs to Epcot, and it comes from Resort, so it doesn't have anything to do with Magic Kingdom. So the ferry boat is strictly just used to get you from either from TTC to Magic Kingdom or Magic Kingdom to TTC, and then you go to your car, you get to your hotel or whatever. So basically, it was at the end of the night. So it was like at midnight when this happened. So it was full of people at the end of the day. And it happened as them coming back in. They weren't going into Magic Kingdom; they were coming into the TTC. But yeah,
Definitely.
Bad situation.
Yeah, not a good situation. Yeah, it's something I kind of frown upon just a tiny little bit, because it doesn't seem Walt Disney World as a resort has had much good luck. Like you said, maintenance problems. Then this other situations happen. Then put the opening first scoop on the Sunday. They involve themselves with politics. I'm not even going to get into that, but
yeah,
that's what started all of it. But it's not looking too good. Oh, not to mention, you did a story a while back on, what was it? Oh my God, Soarin'. The roof was collapsing or some nonsense.
There's been at Magic Kingdom, actually all over various spots. I think Fort Wilderness and Soarin' had it happen, where they've actually had sewage leaks. They've had multiple ones in the Frontierland and Magic Kingdom. I think, I mean, this is where you get into the conversation about Disney's maintenance. And I do know my dad drove a bus for Disney up until COVID hit.
Sure.
So I did talk to him. He talked to a lot of the guys and talked about, over the years, they'd been there for 10, 15 years, about how maintenance had been cut back over time. Like, they just weren't doing as much of it, I think, in many ways to save money, to try to have more profit, like per quarter. And I think you're talking about an aging infrastructure in many ways. There probably needs to be a lot of, structural work going to some of these areas. I don't know if they're doing that, or maybe they're planning to. I'm not really sure. But yeah, there's a lot of, something the size of Disney World, you're always going to have something pop up. I mean, you do have fights randomly. There was a big fight that broke out in Disney Springs a few weeks ago and stuff like that. But it's just things, I think, that are, if it does end up being something maintenance related, I think Disney is a very reactive company in many ways. That could be the thing that gets them to react to try and up their maintenance, and essentially just to keep themselves from being sued so much. Because I think regardless, whether they pay people out for settlements or they get sued, this is going to end up costing them a lot of money. Because there's no defense Disney is going to have where they're not at fault for this, especially if there were like major injuries with all this.
Oh, definitely, 100%. And you know what? I'm going to add to this on our next story, and I'm going to let you get into that one as well. This is going to be Disney and NFL reach $1 billion deal, ESPN to air first Super Bowl. I want to ask you, tying into what you just said about the lawsuits about this ferry boat accident, you know, with Disney making a deal with with the NFL, and then the fact that they're doing so much expansion and just Walt Disney World in general. You got Animal Kingdom, you got Magic Kingdom with Cars Land, you got Hollywood Studios with the was it the Imagineer or Imagine Courtyard?
Yeah, the Imagination Studio. It's kind of like or mimicking the one that's out in California. Yeah.
Okay. And then you also they haven't announced anything for Epcot yet, but all the other parks are getting some type of upgrade. Do you think those lawsuits, and including what we're going to read next, could affect any of those projects?
I mean, at this point, it's hard to know. Probably not, given the fact that they've already announced these things and they're already probably borrowing a lot of money to do these things, would be my guess. So it probably wouldn't have that much effect. And I guess it would just come down to the severity of like the injuries from the ferry boat. Like if you're talking about, you could have broken bones. I mean, you could have some really, serious, if people were, really flying if you're on those ferry boats, like you're just standing there. If that thing hits, you're going to have a bunch of people just domino affecting on top of each other. So you could have some pretty significant injuries there, but I don't think you'd probably looking at anything that would hamper in park stuff, would be my guess. And I think the thing at Hollywood Studios, I actually like that idea because I think Launch Bay is just this weird thing that's a layover ever since Galaxy's Edge opened. It was like where you could meet Darth Vader, which you can't meet Darth Vader in Galaxy's Edge, which I still think is weird. And then you got Star Tours. So you had like 3 different parts of Hollywood Studios that had Star Wars stuff. So I actually think getting this part of the park back to kind of like what it used to be is actually a pretty good move. But I think it's a relatively cheap thing they're going to be able to do, as they're going to be done by next year. So I actually kind of think that thing they're bringing about Hollywood Studios is kind of a reaction, perhaps, if we've seen reports about the attendance this summer being pretty low at Disney World. And it could be a reaction to that, of trying to have more things like new, quote, attractions to have open next year to try and bump up attendance a little bit. That'd be my guess. But they're not really doing much. Like, they're not building anything new. They're just kind of redoing that space. So I think it's probably relatively on the cheap of what they're already doing.
Oh, for sure. So, Jared, I'm going to have you take it away with this next article. This, again, was a topic you wanted to talk about. So, by all means.
It's very interesting. So, they Disney and NFL reach $1 billion deal. And I think the reasons for this are pretty interesting. It also means that ESPN is going to air its first Super Bowl, which is pretty interesting because usually the Super Bowl is not on cable. It says, so Red Zone NFL Network, 7 more regular season games, the NFL's fantasy football business, as well as the potential to integrate special features, including betting and potentially more assets. And the agreement coincides with ESPN's forthcoming direct-to-consumer service that will formally launch in the next few weeks. They said this has been in talk for at least 4 years from what they're reporting here. And basically, it's an updated partnership. It said because they're already working together on somewhat here.
Sure.
So the NFL is going to receive up to 10% of ESPN. So they're getting an equity stake in ESPN. And then let's see. So there could be a term linked to the agreement. They didn't disclose that. And then basically it just seems like I think the reason that they're doing this. So obviously Disney is giving up equity in ESPN to get this deal with the NFL.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this is because you've seen, Twitter X, you've seen Amazon, like all these tech companies getting in, wanting to, show football games, like NFL games, like pro sports games. And it's very expensive to renew these deals every year. I mean, I don't know how much it costs every time they have to renew these, but it's in the billions and billions of dollars to do so.
Sure.
I think this is Disney's way of keeping that with ESPN, but instead of paying upfront cash, they're just giving up equity to ESPN to do it, so they don't have to pay as much for the licensing deals. It actually isn't a bad business move. I mean, you're going into bed with the people that run it, so you're obviously going to get some. If the NFL has equity stake in ESPN, they're obviously going to get better coverage. They're going to give them perks and things like that. But I think a lot of it is from Amazon. You've seen a lot of NFL games show up on Amazon the last few years. I think also on Twitter, Twitter X. So I think it's a lot to do with that.
Well, definitely, and it's not just the NFL. I'm starting to see it during the MLB as well, because MLB is starting to reach that as well. Being that they just did an expedition game at a NASCAR track, which why they wanted to do that?
They did a baseball game at a NASCAR track?
Oh yeah, they
really
configured it. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, if you Google it, I think they just played it either today or the other day. It was
interesting.
Oh,
baseball is so messed up. Like, I'm a Cardinals fan, and I don't even know where I can watch Cardinals games because all the licensing rights with baseball is so regional. Like, it's so screwed up with baseball.
Definitely.
I'm not surprised to see that Amazon and them getting in there and trying to do that. But I mean, I think you saw last year. I think the most NFL. I think Amazon had 7 games last year. Like, they had a decent amount of games last year, and they paid. How much did they pay for that? I'm gonna look it up real quick.
Amazon. Yeah, by all means. While you're looking that up, it looks like from this article, it is saying it is likely that Disney and ESPN will announce this updated partnership on their third quarter 2025 earnings call, which is set to take place August 6th. The live webcast will take place at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 5:30 in the morning. So anyone that wants to listen to that, please drink your coffee.
I will watch it. You know what's interesting? And I will give it to Disney. They're slick with this stuff. So the last time that a lot of people were looking at the park, like everyone's assuming looking at the park attendance this summer, that very likely you're going to see a decrease in the revenue and attendance at some of the parks. But every time there's one of these quarters where this happens, they did the same thing when they had that partnership with Epic Games, and they trot out that deal, and the stock price sometimes goes up, but sometimes it kind of levels out when they don't have that big hit. It's kind of interesting with the timing with this, as you're going to have this, the earnings call on the 6th. I think in many ways they may have went ahead and said, hey, let's announce this now, so that potentially if they do have, let's say the park segment isn't looking great this quarter, this maybe would offset it. So I think the timing is interesting for that. They're slick on that, but I just looked up. Amazon has an 11-year contract with the NFL, and they pay $1 billion per year for an undisclosed amount of, I think, 16 Thursday night football games, which Thursday night isn't the big night for football, but yeah, they pay $1 billion a year. So probably for Monday Night Football, I'm sure Disney was paying $5 billion a year or something, probably be my guess.
I 100% believe that.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to me as well, because over the years, from what I've seen, I could be totally wrong on this, but Disney and ESPN have gone back and forth. We've seen different iterations of the partnership between those two. And what I mean by that is, prime example, and I'm sure Disney Springs had it. Maybe they didn't. I'm not sure. But out here in downtown Disney at Disneyland, we had for several years, we had an ESPN zone, actual restaurant. They had it in LA and LA Live. Now you don't even see those anymore. And now they're focusing more on something like this. I'm trying to think how I can word it. Do you think it's a smart business decision to sit there and now branch off back into sports? Because I know they kind of backed off a little bit, but now they're starting to get back into it again.
Well, if you look at TV, for the most part, has been a decline. I mean, linear television, traditional cable, all that stuff, that's been declining for like a decade. The thing that hasn't been declining is live sports. Definitely. So Disney wants to maintain some semblance of the traditional cable model. And I
Sure.
think this is it keeps that, which I think is an asset for them. But it's interesting. Giving up equity is kind of very similar in many ways. I guess you could say it's like if you had a business and if you want to make sure that you're always in business and somebody says, hey, well, I'll give the government 10% of my company, so they're going to be favorable to me. So it strikes me as a company making this deal where maybe they either didn't want to or didn't have the cash to pay it up front, whereas this allows them essentially to maintain the rights, get in
Definitely.
bed more with the NFL and not have to pay straight cash. Instead, you're paying equity, which
Yeah.
is not something that's going to hit you directly. Like if you've got a lot of, cash flow, whatever it is, you're just basically giving it part of your company. So it's an interesting move. I think it's actually pretty smart
Yeah.
to do it if you're wanting to keep your pro sports. And I think you could see the same deals happen with like the NBA as well. I wouldn't be shocked one bit,
No.
given that. And so I think it's a move. It was interesting to me that they gave up equity. It just struck me as they just paid all that money to Comcast for that rest of that Hulu deal. They're
Yeah.
paying out a bunch of money for building all the stuff they're building in the parks. They may not have had the cash or the financing to pay out, to renew the deals coming up. And instead they decided to go this equity route. It's kind of my thinking on it, but it keeps it with them. So it gives them advertising money and does keep ESPN still relevant on some degree for or for live sports. So that's really the last thing of the traditional TV model that is still
Oh,
popular is live sports.
oh, definitely 100%. Well, let me ask you on that. Do you think, how can I word this? Do you think on this earnings call that's going to happen in literally 3 days from now, do you think we'll get more clarification on that? Do you think they'll allow that earnings call to kind of not deep dive, but dive in enough where investors feel like they can get some type of clarification on that? Because, like you said, they paid all this money for the Hulu deal. They're investing a ton of money between the Walt Disney World, between Disneyland out here in California, their international parks, which
Mm-hmm.
not all the funding they're putting up for that, but I'm sure they have a little bit going towards that. Then you got the Disney cruise lines that they're putting money up for.
Oh, they
So,
put over like 10 bill into the Disney cruise lines the past
well,
couple of years. Like they
well,
put
that,
a ton of money out there.
well, that's what I mean. So I'm kind of wondering if they will kind of go into a little bit more detailed information about that on the earnings call, or you think they're going to shy away from that?
So I actually watch all the earnings calls. They're incredibly boring. I just watched the
That's
Comcast one, which Disney's going to be interesting, and we'll talk about the Comcast. Man, they had a good earnings call. So earnings call typically, it's a lot of fluff. They're not going to give you more numbers than they have to. But what's interesting about the end of year, so this one technically Disney's end of year fiscal is this one right here. They actually end their year earlier, and their first quarter is actually the fourth quarter of the actual year. It's kind of weird, but. So in the end of the fiscal one, they typically take shareholder questions a lot, and they always will take investor questions from like Merrill Lynch and all these big investment firms. A lot. I think they'll probably end up asking a lot of very specific questions about this, which may be what they want. Because I don't know if they want the investors asking a lot about the theme parks, because I think until the things they're building are done, which is going to be years from now, they don't really have a lot of positivity to really necessarily brag about. So I think you'll probably end up getting a lot more clarity from the investors asking the questions. Like they're going to really want to know details on this. What do they think it's going to do? So I think you probably will get some more clarity. And I don't think they want confusion, because they definitely don't want the stock price to take a hit. So if investors, like I used to do a little investing, like not day trading, but like swing trading. If investors are confused, that's not good. They'll sell. So you want investors to understand what you're doing. So I could see them really trying to provide some details, and then the follow-up question from investors probably paint a pretty clear picture about what this looks like for them.
Sure. Because like I said though, and like you mentioned, it's a lot of money they're shoveling out, like between this deal, between Hulu, between the parks, between the cruise line, between whatever else they're doing. Now add the cherry on top with the potential lawsuit about the ferry boats. It's a
Yeah.
lot of money going out. So
Yeah.
I can see what you're saying is, they want to give enough information where, like you said, investors, understand what's going on, but they don't want to shoot themselves in the foot either.
Yeah, they'll in any earnings call, any company, they won't lie. They technically can't lie, but they're
They they,
going to
they could sugarcoat it.
yeah, they're going to sugarcoat as best that they can. They're going to sit there and like if they'll come up with like I think that was the term they came up with was they were seeing what they called it lowered what they say consumer demand. I don't know. They had another word for basically like not as many people were coming to the theme parks, but they put a fancy term to it to try and make it sound better. So
Yeah.
you'll see stuff like that all the time in earnings calls. So I think they'll definitely try and highlight this, and they'll mention if the park numbers are down, they'll mention it, but they will very quickly try to move on to this as like, hey, we got equity stake, like hey, we got the NFL, like they're gonna really try and push this to be the message that comes out of the earnings call, and not potentially losses on say movies or theme park side.
Oh, 100%. Anything else you want to add about this call, or you kind of just want to,
I'm very curious what Disney's numbers are going to look like for the theme parks. And we'll talk about Comcast because Comcast had 19% increase in the revenue from Epic opening. So if Disney, I've said for the entire time, if during this time period where Epic opens and they're doing their thing with Epic or Universal and Disney's still constructing all their stuff, if Disney's able to maintain, because they had like a 6% jump in their revenue from their last earnings call before Epic opened.
Yeah.
If they're able to maintain that, I think that's a win for Disney. So if they came out of this and said we're flat on attendance and revenue, I actually think that's pretty good for Disney.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious what they're going to say, what the theme parks look like, and what they say their outlook is for say the second part of the year. Because you got like touring plans. They've said that the attendance this summer is the lowest they've seen since 2022, back in the COVID days.
Lord. Wow.
So, and then you also just have people, they're not traveling as much for summer anymore, but it does make you curious about the outlook for the fourth quarter or toward the winter time about what that looks like. So, it's going to be very interesting to see what their earnings call looks like.
Definitely. So, Comcast, I'm just going to kind of read this a little bit and then let you take it from there. It looks like they already had their second quarter earnings call literally just a couple days ago. What obviously you said you listened to pretty much every single one. What was the best things you could take away from that earnings call?
So they came out and said one of the things that bumped up their overall numbers was that payment from Disney for the rest of Hulu. So they reported that on this one. But the big takeaway from it, even with and I'm trying to find the article I had on it, but I'll find another one. They had a loss on which they actually have been lately. They had a loss on their actual internet service provider end, but it was offset by essentially the theme parks having a 19% increase in revenue. And they attributed that to Epic Universe opening. And that was only one quarter of Epic Universe. And I think the thing that's very interesting about this, and they even mentioned in the earnings call, they were seeing more per guest spending with Epic. Like the people that are coming are spending more money on food and merchandise, which of course they love that part. And that's part of their strategy.
Sure.
But you only have one month of Epic open reporting for that. But this is also during a time period where Epic is nowhere near what they want for that park's capacity. I do know they have about a 22,000 cap limit per day internally for how many people they let in that park. But they want this park to be, 40, 50,000 guests per day. So the fact that they're already seeing 19% revenue growth off of just this early part of it, I think it's got to be very encouraging if you're Comcast to see those numbers already. And you're not even at the full strength of what Epic is going to do. But they also did mention as well, they weren't seeing any cannibalization of the existing parks. That was one worry some people had, that the attendance at Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios itself was going to fall off. They said that didn't happen. So I think if you're Comcast, you're very happy with what you've seen thus far with what Epic's done for them in just the one month they've been open.
Well, that and just the mere fact of the investment they're doing. You know,
Yeah.
if you look at it, like you said, Epic hasn't even been open a month, and they're already looking at expansion. You look at their current parks in Orlando, they're already looking at expanding. You know, obviously, I think if I'm not mistaken, isn't it August the 14th they're closing down Rip Ride Rocket, or is it the 18th? I thought it was the 14th.
I
I
thought
couldn't
originally it was September, and then they came back and I thought it
switch it
was
up.
August 25th. Let me look real quick. I
Yeah,
know it's in August now. August, oh, you're right. August 18th. That's when it's closing down for
18th.
good. So originally,
Okay.
I think it was September like 25th, and then
Wow.
they moved it up.
Yeah,
Uh,
they did.
and they've already got a lot of construction around it. So that ride's still running right now, but they've got a whole bunch of dirt near City Walk they're already building up. So they're already working on this next part of it. They're just not working on the actual coaster part yet.
No. See, and I find that very interesting to me. It's a strategy again that I have to award Universal for doing on a attraction that doesn't really have the best of life left in it.
Yeah.
Uh, the fact that they're already preparing for that last day um, means to me, as someone that goes to Universal, obviously not the Orlando park, but out here on the West Coast, but just the company in general, shows that they care about their investors. They care about their annual pass holders. They care about the everyday theme park guest that decides to maybe not go to their competitor, which is Walt Disney World, and go to their park. It shows that they care. I'm not saying Walt Disney World doesn't care, but when you're seeing stuff like this, and then you're looking at Epic Universe not even open a full month yet, and they're already expanding. Obviously, they were planning on doing so, but when was the last time? And I'm being serious on this. When was the last time you heard any park being open for that short amount of time and already expanding?
Oh, I don't think I've ever heard that. I mean, they were talking about expansion areas for Epic Universe before the park even opened. That was the
That's what
crazy
I mean.
part. They had one of their last commercials they ran. It was I think it's Kathy Irvine. I can't remember her name. She's like the president of Universal Creative. And
Yeah,
they'd already said they have a slew of things planned for the existing parks, and they already had expansion ideas and plans for Epic. And
yeah,
so they were talking about that before the park even opened. And I think as well, when you look at Epic, the wait times there have been rising, and I think that's they're still working through the issues with the ride reliability and things in that park. But I think one thing that park does need to really flush it out is going to be more attractions. And I've been saying for months, I think Universal is going to be so aggressive this next decade. I don't think you're going to be waiting 5 years till you see an expansion at Epic. I won't be shocked one bit if they announce an expansion before the end of the year
yeah.
something. And I have heard from some people internally. I had one team member tell me that Zelda is going to be the expansion for Super Nintendo World.
And you know
I'm
what?
not confirming it, but that's what they told me. They said it's been talked about internally.
Well, it's funny you even mention that because there's so many references to Zelda. It would make sense.
Yep.
Zelda's another popular IP in the Nintendo universe. So I don't see why not.
Well, that's been the
It's
big rumor for years is it was going to go into Lost Continent.
yeah,
That was the hot rumor 2 years ago when Lost Continent shut down. All this, not Lost Continent, but Poseidon's Fury randomly shut down. Everyone thought, oh, they're getting ready to do it. And I know for a fact they have been developing ideas for Zelda. They just didn't really know which way they wanted to take it, if Zelda was big enough to do its own thing or whatever that is.
sure.
So it's been something they've been working on or at least discussing internally for a long time.
Oh, definitely 100%. And there's a video we're going to watch once we go through this article, and it's going to be from Alicia Stella. But one of the things I find interesting in the video we're going to watch, I think she happened to mention Zelda was a possibility. There was also a Luigi's Mansion. I'm like, hold off for a second. I'm like, I get Epic Universe is the shiny new toy. I understand that, but at least leave one Nintendo property to another Universal park, aka Hollywood.
Yeah.
So don't take all the glory, but it's interesting to me. Again, this is a very, very, very smart move again by Universal. Obviously, I don't know back in the day when Walt was still alive with Magic Kingdom, Walt Disney World in general, when they were building the parks out, if they set themselves up for expansion like this, like Epic did. And if they didn't, maybe down the road, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, when they do decide to open a fifth park at the Walt Disney World Resort, they can learn something from Epic and, kind of take a page out of their book and build a theme park that obviously will have expansion slots behind each land. So they kind of set themselves up where they don't have to do, a lot of red tape. Because
Yeah.
one thing I see all the time, whether it's, I don't think it's that much in Orlando, but out here on the West Coast, obviously there's different circumstances. For whatever reason, Disney loves going through red tape, and Universal's like that smart nerd that you see in the back of the classroom figuring out ways to, get on top of it. And it's
Yeah.
just, I
Well, they
don't get
did an interesting move at Epic. It was like last year. Everyone at the time was like, oh, they filed for permits for thing. But what they did was they went ahead and they basically got all the zoning already done for the things that they're going to eventually do. Like they got it like whatever hotel. So like they don't have to go through a lot of the initial red tape when they do start construction. They'll still have to do permits,
sure.
but they already have it approved. So they can basically hit the ground running pretty quickly in whatever expansions they want to do. And they already do have one. I mean, we do know there have been permits filed for an expansion off of Celestial Park. That's the rumor there is that it's going to be a entertainment venue of some sort.
Yeah.
It's not going to be in like a land or like a ride, but
Sure.
they're already, I mean, yeah, they're already working on adding stuff. And that permit expires in December of this year. So whatever
Wow.
they're doing looks like it may get built pretty quick. But yeah, no, they are very, I think they're very aggressive. They're very hungry. And I think they're putting pedal to the metal and just going hard. And I love to see it.
Oh, definitely 100%. I want to ask you about this. Again, this article is from Blog Mickey and again sourced from you. Um the fact that this title right here is a Wicked expansion coming to Epic Universe.
Yeah.
Without asking, um and you probably already asked, some of your friends that work for creative and whatnot and Universal in general, but your own personal opinion. We've seen references to Wicked at the current Universal Orlando park out here in Hollywood with a meet and greet. And then the biggest version of any type of Wicked anything was, I think, Universal Beijing, right? Where it was a whole kind of like experience.
Yeah, and they have that experience at Orlando too. It's like a museum from the movies and a
Yeah.
shop, and they
Sure.
have meet and greets there sometimes. Well, even Mark Woodbury himself in like numerous articles said Wicked was it was built or made for theme parks, is what he said.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons as to I do think Wicked will become part of the Universal parks. As much as I don't care about Wicked, I think undoubtedly they will do it at some point.
Definitely.
This stuff here showing up though, I don't really think it's for Wicked, because if you look at this, it's this random green stuff that showed up, which you're
Yeah.
like, first off, what it's for, I do not know. But
Yeah.
these things wouldn't show up until this land was actually developed if they were going to do a Wicked land. So if you
Yeah.
look at the land there, none of it's been developed. There's no buildings being done, nothing of that sort.
No.
So the only things to me that it could be related to the permits they already have filed. The only thing about it, if you look at that picture right there,
Yeah.
the area that they're going to do work on is at the clear other end of the park. So
Yeah.
I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me that they would put all this stuff here and haul it over there. It's possible they could, The other
Sure.
thing it could be is they did store Velocicoaster pieces at Epic Universe before they put it into the Islands of Adventure.
Yeah.
This could be stuff for whatever the Rip Ride Rocket replacement is that they're just holding over here at Epic Universe.
Could
And I
be.
think that may be pretty likely, just given how quickly they're moving on that. And if the green pieces are there, that does make you wonder if it is Ghostbusters, because you could have Slimer involved. Like, that's the other interesting wrinkle to this.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things I've said multiple times is the mere fact that Rip Ride Rocket is going away, obviously. And some people were speculating it could be a Fast and Furious, like a Hollywood Drift, but probably called Orlando Drift or something. And I publicly stated on many of my live streams, I said, I really hope to God it's not a Fast and Furious.
I agree.
I kind of feel like at this point, you know, the parks are gaining so much revenue from the everyday guest. And I'm talking both at Universal and at Disney in general, with the upcharges of season passes or magic keys, whatever you like to call them, the parking fees, the food prices, drink prices, merch prices, experiences prices, lightning lanes, fast pass, all this other stuff. You know, I kind of feel it's becoming to the point where whatever attractions, especially in the domestic parks, I don't really care what they do in the international parks, but the domestic parks, I personally would like them to have two different identities at this point and stop the cloning. You
I
know,
agree.
there are some stuff you can clone. So, like for example, okay, you know, if a Harry Potter land would be coming to Hollywood, not saying it is, it's been rumored for years, but it's starting to gain some steam again. But if it did come, one of the things I would say 100% is, first of all, you can clone some things, don't clone everything.
Right.
Bring new things to life.
Make
The
it
way
unique.
exactly, unique. Because unique is a very interesting word. Because, like yourself, you live in Florida. I live in California. If I'm sitting there wanting to go to the Florida parks and experience what they have to offer, why would I travel all those miles, all those hours to sit there and go see something I could see at my Hollywood park, which is not even an hour and a half from where I'm at?
Right. Yep. No,
So,
I agree. I think I think it makes for more of a unique identity for each park as well. And personally speaking, that's the thing I've heard. Now there are some people I've talked to that do claim the Rip Ride Rocket replacement is going to be Fast and Furious. I think there's a lot of. I personally would love to see it be Ghostbusters, because one thing I would love to see at studio side is these retro properties, like say Ghostbusters and Back to the Future. We know they're doing Back to the Future out in the UK park. I would
yeah.
love to see some of these retro properties come back into the studio side. I think that'd be very cool. Fast and Furious, it makes a lot of money, but it's not a franchise I care about, and it's so cheesy. But I do think Universal wants to have a Fast and Furious presence in their parks. So
Sure.
if the roller coaster that they're replacing with isn't Fast and Furious, I wonder, because like you got Supercharged sitting there, which is just panned across the board. Like, then I have questions about what are they going to do with that, and so whatever this new roller coaster is going to tell us a lot about what their future plans are.
Yes.
But personally, I'm rooting for Ghostbusters because I think that'd be pretty cool. But I agree. I think if they do Fast and Furious, though, like, it needs to be its own thing and not just a copy, which I don't think it would be, given
No.
the footprint it's going into. But yeah, I would like to see something different than just another version of a Fast and Furious coaster.
And you know, one thing I can say compared to Fast and Furious, and then you got Ghostbusters, is Fast and Furious, I've always believed it's always a West Coast type IP
Yeah.
based film franchise. It would make zero sense to me to throw it now on the East Coast. Now, going to Ghostbusters, though, that's a different story because the whole surrounding of the Ghostbusters franchise, it's based in New York. And where's New York? East Coast. So it
Right.
makes sense to keep it in the East Coast, have Fast and Furious on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Why
Well,
why
even in the Universal Studios park
yeah,
where this coaster is going, it's in the
sure.
New York section of
See, makes sense.
studios, which to me is why I've said the whole time, I was like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to be Fast and Furious because you've already got that. And then there's been those Easter eggs about the firehouse there that was the Ghostbusters attraction back in the day.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of things that point to it, but I agree. I don't think, I mean, not that you couldn't make it work. You could make some story, I'm sure, that could make it work. But the fact that this is in the New York section of the park itself, I think it wouldn't make a ton of sense for it to be Fast and Furious to put it right there.
No, 100%. Well, it's funny you mention that because I've watched one of your videos before, and you mentioned Supercharged. You know what? Let me see if I can actually pull it up here on Google Earth. But while I'm pulling it up, you happen to mention that you got Supercharged, then you got where what was it? Oh my God, it was that stunt show you guys have. What was it?
Oh,
Fear Factor
the
Live?
Fear Factor building right there. Yeah. Or the theater there. Yeah.
Okay. So the fact that you have both those massive footprints, it really makes me wonder because I know you happened to mention it before, again in one of your videos, but you were talking about at one point or another because right here, obviously, you got Harry Potter, and then where we're looking at right here is this both those the Fast and Furious and where Fear Factor Live was, or is it
So
more
Fear
over?
Factor Live is actually on the other side of Diagon Alley. So this area right there, that is Supercharged in the before it. So if you go
Okay,
further
yeah,
over on the other side, Diagon Alley, that's the Fear Factor building there. So
right
they're
here.
two big footprints, but they're not next to each other, which kind of
Mm,
makes it a little complicated.
yeah, it's a little complicated. And then what's this building right here? What is this?
Zoom. Oh, that is the pier. So that's where you've got restaurants. You've got that's like the San Francisco area. You've got Richter's Burgers. You've got they still have the Jaws shark you can take a picture of. It's just kind of a pier thing. It's a cool little area. Like
Sure.
the San Francisco area is a little bit it needs some stuff done to it.
Okay. Well, talking about the supercharged footprint, because obviously this is the biggest out of the two. And you've talked about in one of your videos about Diagon Alley needing an expansion.
It could use one. They've had it rumored for a long time that they're going to do one.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Just hypothetically saying, looking at this massive footprint here, if you were going to do an expansion, what type of Harry Potter attraction, maybe restaurants, interactive stuff, what would you take away from the Harry Potter movies and try to put it in that footprint if you had to speculate?
Yeah, there was that patent they had about a broomstick ride for a
Yeah,
bit. It was like a VR thing. I don't think that's a great concept,
no,
but I mean, something to do with your riding a broomstick would be pretty cool.
that'd be
It would be, and now the footprint it's in, it's this is the issue you have at Universal Studios in general. Is like you don't have these massive footprints like you do at Epic to be able to do like
sure.
large scale rides. So you'd probably be looking at something screen based.
Yeah,
So something like that could be pretty cool, or some sort of dark ride. I think you can always go with the dark ride element of some sort of parts of the movie. Maybe you're going through Hogwarts and different spaces like that. Like I think the footprint's not huge enough to do something massive, but they potentially could expand Diagon Alley on both ends because they do have space on both sides to do it. I think the big question is which way would they expand if it was one or the other, or what, how do they decide to handle that? But yeah, I think the broomstick thing, there was another, someone had the idea about I think it was Attraction Ideas, and it was a Harry Potter boat ride. No, it was the Forbidden Forest. I think that's what it was.
Ooh.
Something to do with the Forbidden Forest, which would be pretty cool. Like you've got a lot of cool stuff you could do.
Oh,
Uh,
100%.
I guess it would just come into, do they want to do more Harry Potter, just given they already have a brand new land with it? I think they probably would, but
Sure.
I suppose that's a question they would just look at.
Well, see, it's funny you mention that as well, because part of Alicia Stella's video, which we're going to watch actually right now, she happens to mention that the new Harry Potter land at Epic Universe is actually missing another attraction that it should have had, but
Yeah.
didn't. And there's two buildings that she points out. One of them is a massive footprint that could be another attraction. The other one could possibly be a shop or some type of cafe that is being held back. So you know, the fact that they still have room to expand on that new land makes me wonder if this is going to be on the back burner. For us out here in Hollywood, it's a little bit different because currently right now our footprint for a Harry Potter expansion that's been rumored for 10, 15, 20 years is Falls Lake. And right
Mhm.
now Falls Lake has a big giant production set going on with the rumored movie The Odyssey film by Christopher Nolan
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
taking place right now. So only time will tell with that, but
Yeah.
who knows? You know,
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff they could do. I think you could do more. Another ride is just something the park could need, but you could easily see another restaurant or two pop in there. And like that Fear Factor building, they only use it for Halloween Horror Nights. It just sits vacant, 9 months out of the year.
so I'm gonna throw this idea before we watch her video is what if they kind of split that in two, that footprint. So they use a little bit for Diagon Alley, but they also use the other half because, like you said, this building right here is kind of like the pier with Jaws and all that. I don't know what this is. I don't know if that's probably more restaurants, but then you have kind of like a lagoon right here. And you know what
Mhm.
it's screaming to me since you guys got rid of your Jaws attraction, even though it's pretty much an exact copy of what we have out here in Hollywood, a Jaws themed roller coaster.
So funny enough, I had proposed that there's a new ride system by Mac Rides. They have it out in Future Scope in France, but it's a roller coaster slash water ride.
Oh
It would
man.
be. It's rumored to be going to Dark Universe for Creature for the Black Lagoon, but you could also use it for a Jaws attraction and kind of have a redo of an updated version of the Jaws ride. Um,
Yes.
I think the retro stuff would go over very well on the studio side. Like if you had Jaws, Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, I think they would be massive hits. So I
Oh yeah,
would be on board. I would be completely on board with it, personally speaking.
definitely. And again, that's a big enough footprint where they can do that. And you have the lagoon right there that would just make it
Yep.
happen.
Yeah, they use the lagoon for a show piece, but
Oh,
you could go into this. Yeah, you could easily do the Jaws thing. I think it would be great. I think that no, I just don't know if they have the space for it
sure.
with the coaster and stuff. That'd be the only question. But theoretically, I would absolutely love it.
You could. They could probably, work around it where if they built the coaster kind of like what they did with the Velocicoaster on how they built that,
Hmm.
they could probably do the same thing. And then, when they do their show at night, they could just have the attraction down for however long the show is and then put it back online.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's like a temporary stop, kind of like what DCA does out here in California with the Incredicoaster when we have World of Color going on.
Yep.
They shut it down temporarily to have the show go, and then they turn it back on. So,
Yep. I could see that. I could definitely see that.
but the last video we're gonna talk about is Alicia Stella's video on Epic Universe and the whole expansion, which me and Jared have been talking about.
Yes, sir.
And Jared, at any point, if you want to stop, review something, let me know. All right.
Before we get to that, real quick, I just got to go put my son to bed real quick for 5 minutes. I will be right back. I apologize. He went to bed early. It's good. I'll be right back.
No, you're all good.
Okay.
So while you're doing that, I'm going to jump to Universal Hollywood real quick.
That's perfect. All right. I'll be right back.
All right. So while Jared is doing that, one of the things I want to point out, but you know what? Before we talk about Hollywood, let's catch up on some of your guys' comments. I know I've been delayed on those comments, so let me go through the comments real quick and say hi to everyone. Jacob Wellard's in the chat. Always great to see Jacob Wellard. Jacob, you also said, what are you wanting the most for expansion at Epic Universe? Well, to be honest with you, I would like to see more expansion for Dark Universe, Super Nintendo World. Like Jared was saying, possibly a Zelda land, possibly maybe a Wicked land. Who knows? Only time will tell. Dead Short Overkill says Donkey Kong Minecart Madness Phase 2 expansion for Universal Studios Hollywood in 2027. Well, Dead Short, I hate to tell you this, I would love a Donkey Kong expansion in Hollywood. I've been craving it for so long. I don't think it's going to happen. I've been told by reputable sources at one point it was possible, but now they kind of shelved that idea. So I don't know if it's even remotely possible at this point. I have said with the Donkey Kong expansion, if it did come to Hollywood, definitely we can make ours definitely unique with a Donkey Kong themed toadstool type theme restaurant, which it's all themed to Donkey Kong, completely immersive, just like Toadstool is. We can have either a bigger footprint of the Donkey Kong coaster in our version. We could have an indoor dark ride. We can have a second ride, which both versions of the Donkey Kong expansion, both in Epic Universe now and the one in Osaka, Japan, only has one attraction, which is the roller coaster. So ours can have two attractions, because back in the day when they were proposing that, we were going to have the biggest footprint of the Donkey Kong expansion. We were going to have the biggest version. So it was possible. But again, I think that idea is shelved, unfortunately, but I would like to see it, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Let me see. Let me just go through these chats here. And then we have GRL Power Coasters. Always good to see her. David, absolutely. But, getting back to Hollywood, again, I'm not going to go into detail. It's not really my place to go into detail, but I'm going to try to do my best. So looking at this footprint here, going from this corner of the theme park, and this is now Hollywood. This is not Orlando. This is Hollywood. From this corner here all the way down to where the Jaws experience is, they are marking trees with different colored flags on these trees to either be removed, to be further investigated, or to be relocated. Good friend of the channel, Theme Park Wizard, did post this on his X account, but he has a detailed article, which I'm not going to get into detail, but you can clearly see that something big is coming, possibly. And again, if you want to read more on that article, I have Theme Park Wizard's Patreon link down below in the description. You can click on that, subscribe to his Patreon channel on patreon.com to read that article. And again, his article is pure rumor. It's not confirmed by any means necessary. So do take it with a grain of salt. But his link is down below in the description if you want to check it out. But going back, Alicia Stella's video, again, there's a lot of speculation that could be coming for Epic Universe. So I'm going to play it again. Jared, if at any point you want me to stop, just, let me know. You can go ahead and speak. It's all good.
Okay.
And then I'll pause it. We could talk about it, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
All right, let's do it. You know what? Actually, let me hold on a second. I got to do this a different way because I'm using Google Chrome, and sometimes it doesn't like me for whatever reason.
Yeah, I always have a hard. Sometimes Brave works better for me, and sometimes Chrome. I always have to find one that works better. It's weird.
Yeah. Sometimes it likes me, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know what to say. Maybe I'm not its type.
I think it's StreamYards too. Sometimes StreamYards is just kind of finicky that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Update. While we have been tracking some expansion projects for Epic Universe since its grand opening back in May, there has been yet another recent development on the ground in one of the expansion plots. Thanks to new aerial photos by BioReconstruct, everyone has been asking what these new bright green beams and building materials are for. Guesses have ranged from a new Wicked expansion for Epic Universe to a new Slimer-themed Ghostbusters ride at Universal Studios Florida. But the leading theory is that they will be used here for something at Epic Universe, and it won't be for a new attraction. According to our best guesses, these staged elements appear to be pieces of a new wall to be constructed along this side of the park. This new wall may be similar in construction to the massive barrier at the edge of Hagrid's Magical Creatures motorbike adventure in Islands of Adventure. You can even see how similar beams were used in the construction of that wall in this photo. It appears that trenches may already have started to be dug along this side of the expansion plot where these elements...
So that's interesting, because if that is the case, and I think on some level it very well could be something at Epic. Sure. If that is for a wall there, that means that more than likely this land may be developed sooner rather than later. You would think?
Yeah.
Unless they're just putting it up for some sort of, if they have a noise ordinance issue, maybe.
But see, you would know better than anyone because you've been to Epic. There's nothing really around Epic besides that, sewage plant, but are they really going to complain about noise?
The only thing you have nearby is there is an apartment complex where a lot of people were getting views of Epic during construction from, but it's on, I'm trying to think where this part is. It's more toward the front of the park, and this is kind of toward the back, so I don't even think that would be addressing any sound with that area either. So there's not a lot of residential around here. So they don't have the noise ordinance issue that they have at the City Walk and the studio side either. So that's a possible theory. That is one that it very well could be for that.
Well, yeah, definitely. And again, this is all theory at this point because, like she mentioned, it could be for Epic. It could be for a Wicked something. It could be for the sound wall that Hagrid's has. It could be for Ghostbusters. We don't really know. We just don't. We can only speculate.
I think it's very safe to say that it's not a direct expansion yet, just because, again, you would see leveling of the land. You would see there would be other things happening here before you'd have these construction elements just show up for stuff like this. You would during the Epic construction, you would have seen buildings already being erected. Other things would be here other than these random things just popping up.
Definitely.
Have been staged behind Stardust Racers. While the beams are most obvious in these photos, we can also see piles of wall panel pieces to be installed between the supports. These elements could be combined to create hundreds of feet of walls, and tall walls at that. This possible example by Tommy Hawkins.
So are you surprised that is something that could be possible?
No, because one of the things that people have complained about, and I say some, not everybody, but is sight lines. And so it could be something to do with you as well not being able to see, like if you're riding Stardust Racers,
Sure.
you're going to be able to see all that stuff over there. Now, even on the top of Stardust Racers, I don't think that wall would be tall enough to really block that, but it could be just for more sightline, like containment of the park, more or less, to cut down on those, or maybe from the outside looking in as well. I guess on some level, it could be a security thing. Maybe they've had some issues with people trying to get into the park on this end, considering it's right near a road. But I mean, that is given the amount of construction materials there, that wall does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, 100%.
Shows just how big a wall that could be created using all of the elements staged here. The groundwork that may have already started is at this edge of the park that runs along the nearby water treatment plant. And that may be part of the reason for installing such a large fence in the first place, to block the water plant from the theme park. We will keep an eye on this possible project, but if these pieces are for a wall and the earth movement along the perimeter of this area is the land prep, we may see construction begin on this tall wall very soon.
Given that that water treatment thing is there, that is a very logical reasoning as to what that could be.
Oh yeah,
it is right there. Like a lot of people don't know that, but there's a water treatment center not far from there at all. Some people have said they can smell it. I've never smelled it. Some people claim they can smell the sewage and stuff like that in the park, but I personally have never experienced it myself.
No, I don't know. It's a catch-22, because I think part of that wall, like you're saying, it could be to block that out. It could be, like you said, that area of the park is literally right next to a road. Maybe they had issues with people trying to trespass in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
It could be a lot of things. It could be that whatever land they're putting there, obviously theming is going to go on that wall, but they enjoy the land, not worry about seeing a, sewage plant or other little scattered buildings, everywhere.
And I've also wondered, I mean, you look at the expansion they're doing in the whatever they're building around Celestial Park. I kind of wonder if the opening of Epic was kind of the date they opened it was from corporate being like, we need to open it by Memorial Day. And they still had plans to do a lot of this stuff before, but they didn't get a chance to do it before they had to open the park up. So a lot of this could be some of the construction they already had planned on doing. They just are now getting back to doing it is possible as well. So this could have been stuff they already planned to do, well before. They just didn't get a chance to do it yet.
Well, see, in my perspective, like we were talking about earlier with the earnings call for Comcast, I think they did a great job by opening it early. And again, I shout out to Universal and Mark Woodbury and the executives for immediately trying to, expand immediately. Obviously you're always going to have people be negative, that small little group on no matter what subject it is. That group might say, oh, well, maybe what they built and what they opened with wasn't enough and they're getting desperate. You're always going to get those type of people or what. The way I see it is, this is investment, and the fact that the earnings call said that Epic Universe is probably a contributing factor to that 19% increase. You can't argue with that.
And it's pretty smart business. They spent $7 billion ish on building Epic. It makes sense. They want to start getting a return on that to open the park up. And they may have just looked at some of these elements of, we can open this park up, start making money, and still do these other things we want to do. So it may just been a compromise. But the fact too that you already have a brand new park and you already have speculation about what is this stuff showing up. Like, it's a great sign for Universal that people are still interested in being like, what else are they doing here? And I like how Universal does this, where they just don't tell you. They let you speculate. Like, this is they're so different from Disney. Disney would have made an announcement, what's coming, here's concept art. Universal just kind of drop you hints, and they'll start building it. And then, like, even during Epic Universe construction, you had a wand or giant hand holding a wand above a portal. You knew it was Harry Potter, but they hadn't officially said that's what it was. Exactly. They just operate very different, but I kind of like it.
Well, it's so funny because it was like the same thing with the Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift. You know, a good friend in the chat right now, Theme Park Wizard, who is a
What's
great
up,
friend of the channel, and he is like, I call him the go-to permits. He's on top of permits, on top of anything going on at the Universal Park, and it was a lot of fun from the moment they broke ground. You know, obviously taking out the animal actors, the Castle Theater, to build this massive e-ticket roller coaster on the side of a hill, and watching it being built and just speculating. I love that.
It's fun.
I purely love that.
I
And
love that Rip Ride Rocket is already, there's construction going on and we don't know what's coming. I think it's fun. It's kind of like in a movie where you're hyped about like what's going to be next. I think it's a fun thing to do. I think they do that for that reason too, of like what is the fan base going to anticipate.
Yes.
I enjoy it.
Oh, I enjoy it myself.
See construction begin on this tall wall very soon. An element of one Phase 2 project that we've been covering on the channel has finally been confirmed. New permit comments from the county have confirmed the types of food that will be offered at this upcoming Phase 2 dining location near the front of Epic Universe, known as Project 914. Despite only being one building, the permits continue to describe this upcoming eatery as 2 locations, which Universal says will open in 2026. Permits now describe them as Italian and Mexican restaurants, confirming prior rumors. Work on the interior build-out for these new dining locations is going on now, according to the documents. And rumors say they could...
If you were at Epic before they put that signage up, I was watching people try and walk into those buildings because nobody knew that they weren't, like, people that just were brand new to it. So you'd see them go up there like think it's a restaurant. But yeah, these are the buildings that they built like really toward the end of construction.
Sure.
And nobody knew what they were for. But yeah, I did hear the rumors there were going to be Mexican and Italian food. So there's going to be so much food. There's already so much food in Celestial Park.
Okay.
And going to add 2 more restaurants to it.
Well, see, I want to ask you on something like that, because obviously one of the bigger restaurants you have at Epic is Pizza Moon.
Mm-hmm.
Are you at all? I want to say, I'm not trying to use the word concerned, but curious why they didn't kind of ramp up construction on this building, knowing it was going to be 2 different restaurants, and it was going to be both of them are going to be an indoor restaurant. You know, kind of getting to the assumption of, you know, because the weather out there in Florida is so unpredictable. One minute it could be sunny sunshine and heat and humidity. The next minute it could be freaking downpour rain and just sticky, and you know, our
daily monsoon, basically. Yeah,
exactly. Are you, because it's kind of scratching the back of my head why they haven't opened this location at the very beginning and had it ready to go, knowing that, so people could still enjoy the park, still enjoy food that obviously Epic can offer, you know, the everyday guest, but it's indoors.
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of just lean back toward, I think there are a lot of things that they decided when they opened this park that they were just going to have the elements they were going to open up after the fact. I think they may, I mean, it seems to me that may have been a decision that was made to do, because these were, and when these popped up during construction, like, it was very late. It was almost like these were added on. Like, you would have thought these would have been constructed along with everything else in Celestial Park.
Wow.
And then you randomly, like, it was like almost, it's probably like April, maybe a little bit sooner, you started seeing these pop up and you're like, what is this? So maybe they just decided to build these later and just say, we're going to open this up next year. But it does give you something else to look forward to, I suppose. But more indoor things in this park will definitely help, because as of right now, before the trees really grow in, like, Celestial Park is hot. Like, during the day, it is a scorching wasteland of heat. So
yes,
anything indoors in AC is definitely in need.
Yeah. So I'm glad that they are opening this up, and it's going to be both Mexican and Italian restaurants, which I absolutely love.
Mm-hmm.
I know a good friend of both of ours, George, who is what he calls himself.
I've heard he's Italian. I've heard.
I think
that's
he
the
is
rumor.
Italian. Yeah, that's the rumor, speculation.
His facial hair growth makes me think it could be true. I don't really.
I think it is true. I think it's 100% true. I'm just kind of just scratching my head on, you know, again, why this building wasn't ready to go for Epic, knowing that it was going to be an indoor location for 2 restaurants compared to something else they could have maybe waited a little bit and maybe ramped this up. That's all I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be a good question. One of these days, I'll ask the next time I talk to. I know a couple people that work in and around creative. I'll see what they have to say about it. Sometimes they know, and sometimes they're just like, I got no idea. That was above my pay grade. I'm like, okay,
yeah, definitely.
I'll float it
Would
up.
open sooner than next year if they're ready by the holiday season. Another Phase 2 project that we've been following, known in documents as Project 915, is for the addition of a backstage multi-purpose structure. Permit notes have confirmed the location for this new structure as being built between buildings 1205 and 1310, which are the building numbers for the park's main gift shop and the Mario Kart building. Newer permit notes seem to confirm the total occupancy for this new building, which will apparently be 3,837 persons, with the first floor alone accommodating up to 2,824 occupants. The building is described as having 2 stories, with a footprint of around 40,000 square feet. The plans seem to call for meeting and/or banquet room seats, as well as an office area and a commercial kitchen. These specifications are in line with rumors for this structure being used for private and special events in the future.
Okay, so I want to ask you about that because we have something that kind of fits this footprint a little bit. It's what we call at DCA the Hyperion Theater, which is a 2-story kind of indoor event space. Is that something we could possibly be looking at, or could it be a concert venue? Or
that's the rumor I've heard, is like some sort of entertainment venue, which could be, it could be a flex space, it could be entertainment stuff in Celestial Park. It also could be, I mean, one thing about Epic, the reason they did those portals like they did is so they technically could be rented out. Like if you're a court, they're near the convention area, which I think Orlando is like the number 2 convention spot in the nation or the world. So you got a lot of convention traffic. So if a business wanted to rent out Super Nintendo World, they could just close it off and have it rented out for that. So this could be a space where they use for that type of event, but also potentially they could use it for something else for people to do in Celestial Park potentially. But I would be a little disappointed if it is just strictly for that type of use, just for like, convention type, like businesses coming in, like convention space. But we'll wait and see. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. It kind of goes in line with what I've heard, just some sort of flex entertainment venue in general.
Yeah. Well, see, it's very interesting. Again, I refer back to Theme Park Wizard in the chat. Is one of the things that's going on for Hollywood right now is that hillside project behind the Mummy. I personally thought there was several other people that thought that maybe the studio tour, which has been talked about for a little while now, being relocated from where it sits currently today to that lower lot. And from what I've heard up to recent, coming from Wizard and others, it's going to be almost a similar situation to what this is, but at a way smaller scale. But it's going to be like, I guess like those permanent tents you have in Orlando, for Universal, for HHN and stuff. That's something that's probably going to be put in that location. And the only problem I see with that, I have no problem of something like that being in the park, but something where it's so close to the park entrance, public, kind of everyday public access. I don't think that's such a great idea putting it right there. Now, if you want to put it more towards the back of the park, I understand that, because obviously the only time it's really going to be used for public use is, some type of concert venue, maybe for the holidays, or something like that, most of the time it's either going to sit or it's going to be used for private events. And
Right.
something like that, I just don't feel needs to be in the middle of a theme park. When you're trying to expand, that's something you put something more towards the back of the house.
Yeah, and
But
this would lead me to think that this was an area they were always going to do. They just didn't get it done before the park was built. But you got to think too, if it's part of their monetization strategy, I mean, they're looking at making money from it, and if they're doing it for that reason as well, they must feel confident that they're able to get these wait times and ride capacity issues worked out where they can improve that. Yeah, I mean, I always knew it wasn't going to be a land. It just depends on what and there is a gate there, so this could be an area where it's blocked off unless there's an event going on as well.
Sure.
So it could just be like a flex space if the park is like high capacity, like Magic Kingdom has that when it's really high capacity. They have that back area they kind of open up.
Sure.
Could be something like that potentially.
Definitely. And then Wizard was saying ours is going to be used for HHN Fan Fest nights and other stuff. So ours has purpose. All I'm saying is, like, at least for the Hollywood park, not necessarily Epic Universe or Orlando in general, is we have such a small footprint for Hollywood. And again, I don't mind something like this coming to the parks, whether it's in Hollywood or Orlando. I just kind of feel like that shouldn't have been more towards the back and not towards where everything, you know,
especially when you already got limited real estate anyways. Yeah,
exactly. That's the only thing I have to say about it, but that's just me.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Let me continue here.
It seems like vertical construction has not yet been approved to begin, but we will continue to monitor the permits as they are updated. Unknown if related to Project 915 or not, but there are permits to install a prefabricated aluminum tunnel over a backstage road. It will cover 2,400 square feet in size. The permit says this is for protection, but it's unclear if that means from nearby construction or something else. With so much work happening at the park that is not related to new rides, the good news is that the chairman and CEO of Universal Destinations and Experiences, Mark Woodbury, continues to give fans hope for the future of the park.
Of course, you got the lovely commercial. Firefly. Yeah, I know, right? Tell me about it. Oh my God.
What you can't see sitting here are all the expansion areas that are outside of the spaces that you can see. There's a lot of room for expansion. We are already thinking about how that plays out. And it's the same at the north end of the campus. New attractions coming, new intellectual property coming. Rumors have swirled for an expansion to Super Nintendo World being the first to take shape, with talk of a possible Luigi's Mansion shooter ride happening before the park even opened. And more recently, there have been speculation for possible Zelda attractions to be added. Zelda has been a top guess based on the franchise's inclusion in one of the new theme park's retail locations. Epic Universe's executive creative director actually responded to these theories, saying, "I have no comment about that. I mean, that's a beloved character, and this is called Super Nintendo World, so it includes all things Nintendo. So that's a character we have included."
So basically, when I hear something like that, that means a yes, and they're thinking about it.
Yeah, and like I said, I talked to two people that told me that Zelda has won out over Luigi's Mansion for the time being. And I do think Super Nintendo World will be the first area they expand because it's the most popular, makes the most sense to do.
Definitely.
And Zelda is all over that gift shop. I mean, there is Zelda on the floor. You've got on the walls, on the ceiling. It is literally all over that shop, which again doesn't make any sense because everything else in that gift shop is in Super Nintendo World. The only thing that's in there that is not part of it is Zelda. So
exactly.
I think they're saying without saying, like, one of those two are coming, but I think at this point it looks like Zelda. And you've got that movie coming out as well, which could ramp up Zelda, become even more popular. So that's always a possibility too.
So that's kind of what I'm thinking on my aspect. I'm thinking that the creative team, they're coming up with both IPs as lands. They're probably going to, go through the drawings, go through the concept, completely go the full length of it before actual vertical construction. But when you weigh the differences, obviously it's probably going to be Zelda and Epic, but it begs the question where Luigi's Mansion would go. And I don't think Epic is going to have Luigi's Mansion. I think what they're going to do, possibly, and again, rumored, is we might get that at Hollywood, because we missed out once again of getting a Super Nintendo World expansion, which was, again, supposed to be Donkey Kong. And they stated way back in the day when they were even building our Super Nintendo World in Hollywood that if they were to build Donkey Kong, which I don't think they're doing anymore, but at the time, out of 3 lands they had planned, obviously Japan already had theirs pretty much almost done. Epic was going to get it, but we didn't know that at the time. And then Hollywood was supposed to get it. And out of the 3, we out here in Hollywood were supposedly going to have the biggest version out of the 3. Okay. But now that we're not getting something like that, it could mean that we could see Luigi's Mansion come to Hollywood, and it would make sense.
I think that'd be a great thing, because again, it gives you uniqueness at the different parks. And I like Donkey Kong Country, but I think it would be cool to see Luigi's Mansion is something I want to see in the parks. I think that's a very cool concept in general. And yeah, it makes sense. I know the worry they had in Orlando with Zelda was that they put it in islands. If Zelda was a big enough property to really pull people in on its own. So it kind of makes sense if that was a worry of theirs to tuck it into Super Nintendo World and make it part of that greater offering, and then do something else with Luigi's Mansion, because you could put Luigi's Mansion in Hollywood and that becomes an instant draw for that park. So although 100%. Theme Park Wizard says, stay tuned. There's something with Donkey Kong for Hollywood.
He knows something. Wizard, I'm going to tell you right now, because
don't tease us, Wizard.
Exactly. I know he likes doing that. He loves to do that and drive me nuts, but I love him for it. But one thing I am going to say, since Wizard is rapid firing on the comments, if we did get a Donkey Kong, let's just say hypothetically, and I'm going to keep it short but simple. If we did get a Donkey Kong expansion at Hollywood, and if it's still rumored to be true that we would have the biggest version out of the 3, one thing I would like to see, 2 things. 1, a second attraction, if ours is going to be the biggest version out of the 3, and a Donkey Kong themed restaurant, which is almost a carbon copy of what Toadstool is, but Donkey Kong.
I don't know why they haven't done this. Banana bread in Donkey Kong Country, you'll make $1 billion. I don't know if I'm the only one. I will eat banana bread all day long. If you had a dedicated banana bread stand in Donkey Kong Country, I'm just going to say you're going to be immediately profitable.
100%. 100%.
No chocolate chips in there. Put a DK on there. I'm in.
Oh, heck yeah, dude. I am so down.
Anytime my wife makes banana bread, it is gone within like a day. I'm like, quit making it or I'm going to gain 50 pounds. But make it sometimes so I can have it sometimes.
No, I 100% agree. But you know what? Like I said, if we did get something like that, that's what I would like to see out of our version of Donkey Kong if we ever got it at Hollywood. Again, it's a lot of question marks, at least for us out here on the West Coast, because we're dealing with small amount of space, but it's space that we can acquire. But on the other hand, stuff has to be torn down to make it so. It's not like it's just ready to go.
Yeah.
So, but those are the 2 things I would like to see. Donkey Kong themed restaurant with the banana bread that Jared's talking about, and a second attraction in our Donkey Kong land with a possibility, not guaranteed, but a possibility of our coaster being a little bit bigger footprint. A little bit.
Yeah. Listen, I will write Mark Woodbury and say Theme Park Conductor, myself, and Theme Park Wizard are on board for banana bread, and maybe that'll move the needle. We'll see. I'll pitch it. If it ever happens, I'll take full credit for it, but I just want banana bread.
Hey, I might see him at the next Fan Fest nights next year. So if I see him on the Universal lot, I'm going to tell him.
Listen,
mark my words.
Yeah, I feel like most guys are like, yeah, banana bread. All right. They're like, yeah, just throw it in there, Mark. Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
He continued, I wouldn't read too much into that. So if people want to speculate, that's up to them. Recent speculation has also turned to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter Ministry of Magic, which had its second ride cut from the plans early on in development. And if you visited the park, it shows. This land could use another attraction to help fill out its offerings and help take some of the stress off of the popular Battle at the Ministry ride. New notices of commencement for new contracts with attraction design firms have been filed in recent weeks, some of which are labeled as Phase 2. This includes companies that focus on designing indoor attractions from the blue sky to schematic stages, and others that create 3D models from blueprints for pre-visualizations of new theme park rides. And these companies have been hired to work on something for Epic Universe. Unfortunately, these documents filed with Orange County do not.
Indoor stuff makes a ton of sense because they need more indoor stuff. So,
well, I was going to say that early on because that's one of the things you happen to mention your first couple times going to Epic is if the weather, sorry to say, is crappy, and I mean rain, lightning, and stuff like that. There's only what out of the 11 attractions it has
4. There's 4. Yeah, 4 open when it rains.
Yeah.
So which is an Achilles heel of the park right now, especially with the wait time. So yeah, indoor attractions are definitely something this park needs. So that makes 100% sense to do that.
Definitely, 100%.
List which of the areas of the park that these firms have been brought on to work on, but it's exciting to see new notices show up for upcoming design work at Epic Universe nonetheless. For now, there have been rumors from team members working inside of Epic Universe that we could see a couple of the locked doors inside of the Wizarding World actually open someday.
Imagine being able to build anything, for any reason, in any style.
According to rumors, the patisserie at the back of the area may someday open, and the theory is that it could offer real-life versions of the Fantastic Beast-shaped treats created by Jacob Kowalski in the films. A sneak peek for these creations can actually be spotted in the fake window displays for this non-operating patisserie. You can now purchase branded merchandise for Kowalski's Bakery, currently for sale at the Land's Candy Store across the way. The interior space for this patisserie facade is quite small according to permits, so it's unclear if it will actually ever open for business or remain only for show. But the robe shop on the other side of the street is very different. Permits showed this as part of the retail space for this area, and while the door to this Parisian version of Madame Malkin's robes is currently locked, perhaps someday it may open. These possible future additions to Epic's Wizarding World could be similar to the way that Sugar Plums and Globus Mundi open later after the opening of Diagon Alley at Universal Studios Florida.
So I want to ask you on something like that. With something where they have room to open, like Alicia was saying, locked doors. Again, I state, like I've stated before in this live stream, is the fact that Universal is playing that smart. They're not releasing all their cards at once.
Yeah.
But again, I do have to defer myself a little bit to that restaurant that is right off Celestial Park. You know, being a massive building with 2 potential indoor restaurants, probably shouldn't have been on the fast track to be open by now. The fact that people can, again, enjoy Epic, but don't have to suffer being in the weather conditions if weather conditions turn sideways. They can be indoors. That's
they also could be looking at that too with I'm sure they'll probably add an annual pass option next year, which is going to bump it up even more. So then you open up more of these indoor, more things you open up as you open up more attendance potentially. But they did, she's not wrong. They did the same thing with the Wizarding Worlds and the other parks too. They just slowly open things up more and more as kind of mini expansions as part of those lands.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because we got I forgot the ice cream shop in Diagon Alley, but we finally got it in our Hogsmeade just like I think a year or two ago.
Oh,
We
okay.
finally got it after all this time. They actually kind of renovated a corner of our candy shop. I forgot the name of it, but they turned that back corner into the ice cream parlor, which again, it was a small change, but it's a change that everyone loved because as soon as it opened, immediate hit. Because during the
Oh yeah,
summertime,
that ice cream is good. That butterbeer ice cream is solid.
oh, 100%. Who's going to say no to ice cream during the summer heat?
Exactly.
Nobody.
It
Nobody.
melts immediately, but it's delicious. Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
And speaking of the wizarding world in Epic Universe, the ride technology behind the impressive Battle at the Ministry ride has been revealed by its manufacturer. From SimTech Systems, the Hexapod Dark Ride system utilizes 6 degrees of freedom on its motion platform, and this video shows how it is capable of a wider range of motion than the Ministry of Magic ride uses. The company says this ride system is engineered to handle larger payloads, up to 30 passengers per vehicle, while delivering highly dynamic and precise motion. Like the way the tracked Kuka Arm ride vehicle, first introduced with Forbidden Journey, has since been utilized in other attractions around the world, we may someday see this more heavy-duty ride system used elsewhere as well. Universal recently announced that original music created for Celestial Park will be released on vinyl and digital in 2026. For now, they have released 3 tracks from the upcoming album on streaming, which you can listen to on Apple Music, Spotify, and more. The 3 Celestial Park soundtrack selections include the Court of the Moon theme, which plays in the courtyard in front of the Luna statue. Majestic Rising, reprise of Apollo, for the statue at the back of the park. And the daytime version of the on-ride music for Stardust Racers.
You know what's funny
These
about
tracks
the
were
music?
produced by EmaScore.
Even George, the music adds so much to Celestial Park that if you haven't been, it's hard to describe it. But even George is like, you're walking around and they blast that music, and it's got an original soundtrack. It adds such a unique element to that park, like especially Celestial Park walking around, because those different areas you hear different music, like near Apollo, near Luna. It's a very cool part of the park that I don't think a lot of people expect necessarily, but it does add another layer to just like enjoying that area of the park.
Oh, 100%. And that also goes with any theme park. Obviously whatever land you walk into, you want to feel like you're not just visiting a theme park. You want to feel like you're immersed in that IP. So
it's almost like you'd have a Star Wars land and you would play John Williams Star Wars music when you walk. Oh, wait a minute. They don't do that in there. I forgot.
Hey, George Lucas had an opportunity to say something at San Diego Comic-Con. He had a chance.
I still don't understand why there is not Star Wars music playing in Galaxy's Edge. It blows my mind to this day. I'm like, just put somebody's iPod, like just put your iPhone, hook it up and play it. Like, I don't get it.
Well, it's the same thing I could say about the Darth Vader being in Tomorrowland. It's like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
I want to see some Darth Vader, Kylo Ren action freaking going against each other.
Yeah. Who cares about timelines? Just let them do stuff. Yeah, I agree.
Oh, man.
In Germany, who have created the original music for Celestial Park. These songs have also been used in Epic Universe marketing and behind-the-scenes videos.
Epic Universe, only at Universal Orlando Resort.
Running a creator business is overwhelming. Constant content creation, community management.
The news for the new album was first announced at Comic-Con. It was also announced that the Dark Universe album, which has only been available on vinyl so far, will also be released on streaming. Danny Elfman composed the original music for that land. John Powell's new arrangements for the Isle of Berk will also be released. Not much else was announced at the panel for Epic Universe at Comic-Con, except for one interesting thing for Isle of Burke. The extremely popular mac and cheese cones will see a special variation with turkey released this fall. In addition to news on the original score for Celestial Park.
It's funny she mentions that because we have a trial version of 3 of them at Hollywood, and I got to try one, and I was not disappointed.
Oh, dude, I got the hot Nashville chicken one. It is so good. It is. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh, my stomach didn't like me afterwards, but that's okay.
It's best to split it. I split it with my wife. I could have eaten one on my own, but it's a lot of bread. But man, they are, and you can just walk around and eat them. They're so good.
Oh, it reminded me of they kind of have something very similar to they have something very similar in Cars Land in DCA out here at Disneyland. In the Cars Land area with the Cozy Cone Motel, they have something very similar, but this was like on another level of that.
They need to do a pizza one. That's what I want.
Jared, come on, man. You're making my mouth water.
And I will gain 15 pounds every time I go to the park.
I will.
Oh man.
Hey, but I'll probably lose about 5 or 10 walking around.
Yeah, you got the heat. Like it washes off. It's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Park this month saw Universal's official blog drop new lore for Epic Universe's original land. While it delves deeper into things like the Chronos, which powers the portals, and the Celestians, who live in Celestial Park, there are a few new pieces of info worth exploring. The backstory as to why there are flux capacitors on the back of the trains for Stardust Racers has been revealed. According to the story, Doc Brown happened to travel through the portal into Celestial Park, and while he was here, he helped the Celestians stabilize the comments for racing using this technology. And we finally know who the smallest door is for at Moonship Chocolates. In story, there are doors for Maya of the Skies and her navigator, Captain Cacao. But until now, we had no idea who the smallest door was for, with the initials ML. Apparently, ML stands for Major Lolly. She is a little sugar glider that joined the team and makes sure that the moonship is kept in tip-top shape. We'll see if we get some Sugar Glider merch to go along with the Captain Cacao plush whenever it's back in stock. And before we wrap up, there was a fire at the bus depot just outside of Epic Universe last week.
Okay, so I know you did a video on this. I'm just going to state the obvious. This type of nonsense kind of scares me a little bit, especially 2 brand new, and I mean brand new electric buses.
Yeah.
I know, and again, I know you did a video, so if you want to elaborate for everyone watching what happened.
Yeah, so there are no details as of now, but they built an electric bus depot. So people thought I think she was in the park. They thought the smoke was coming from Dark Universe. It was a ways behind it. They built it like across the highway on the other side. But I think one bus caught fire and then it spread to another bus and they completely burnt down. I mean, they're completely totaled. I think what can happen with electric cars, it's not like it's a very common thing, but they can get something called like thermal runaway, where once like those batteries catch fire, you almost can't put them out.
Yeah.
So it can be like manufacturer default. It could be overcharging. And in some instances, it can be like extreme heat can cause it. And during this time period, there was a heat index or a heat warning going around where the heat index was like 112, 115 degrees is what it felt like. So it could have been a lot of things, but it's not a completely uncommon thing with electric vehicles, and once a fire starts, it really gets going. Sure. But yeah, I haven't heard the actual reason as to what happened quite yet, but my guess would be like overcharging or something. Maybe it's a manufacturer defect, but yeah, luckily nobody was hurt. Nobody was on the buses. They were just parked. They were outside. It's just, yeah, they're nice buses, but yeah, those things were just completely burnt to the ground.
Yeah, I think she's going to show footage of them. There was pretty much nothing left.
Yeah, not much.
Terminated.
Yep.
Happened to be in the park that day and was able to capture this footage of what the smoke looked like from the ground. Luckily, no one was.
Yeah, you can clearly see there's no bringing those back to life.
No, those are done. Yeah. What's crazy is when you're on those buses, they're brand new. They're like, I didn't realize that we were on one going, I can't which way we were going, and they're just silent. Like, you're used to a bus having all that noise of the engine. Like, they're just completely dead silent. You're like, oh, I didn't like, it takes you a minute to realize like you don't have that engine sound. But
interesting.
Yeah, it was one of them. That one on the right is one of the bigger ones too. The one on the left is like a normal size one, but it would look like I think that bigger one is the one that actually probably caught fire first, if I were to guess.
So basically, that's probably a decent chunk that they just lost over.
I'm gonna probably say $200,000 worth of buses, if not more.
Sure,
probably.
But see, again, this is something I would call a learning experience.
Yeah,
because compared to Orlando or compared to Hollywood versus Orlando, maybe they'll go back to the drawing board on some of these, and then the other buses that they do have, they can kind of inspect a little bit more, maybe make modifications as time goes.
Yeah.
But maybe kind of going forward, if they do decide to replace these buses, which I don't see why they wouldn't, they'll probably build them maybe a little bit different where they can possibly withstand the weather complex that is Florida, whether it's rain. I don't think rain had would have had anything to do with these eventually. I think it was more just like you're saying, the heat advisory is the biggest thing.
It's possible. Extreme heat can cause when they're charging, it can cause it. It could be a lot of things. I know some firefighters, they say once like those electric car fires start, you almost have to just let them run out because you almost can't put them out. It's kind of crazy.
And they're toxic too.
Yes, very.
Yeah. So, again, they just, I kind of feel there's a learning curve from them. It's kind of a sad learning curve they had to go through, but it's a learning curve for them to improve on something they can build in the future. You know what I mean?
You're like, hey, we need 2 more buses that won't catch fire, please. That would be great.
Exactly. Please.
Was hurt, but 2 buses did catch fire while parked at the station located outside the park just west of Kirkman Road. BioReconstruct was able to get photos shortly after the incident, which gives you an idea of just how serious the fire was. Thankfully, firefighters were able to get it under control quickly, and again, no one was harmed. That's all for now, but be sure to check out our recent deep dive into the new planning documents for the new Universal theme.
So, I haven't watched her video on this yet. I probably want to do another video with you down the road once we get a little more clarification about this park. But just looking at the screenshot she does have, it kind of looks like, from what I can see, it looks like they're going to build this exactly like Epic Universe, where almost every single land, again, this is early concept, so it can change, but almost every single land is going to have some type of expansion plot next to it or behind it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I wanted to. Yeah, once we get more info, I'd love to deep dive because I think Back to the Future potentially could come to Orlando too. And that's something and even Jaws right there. So you could see some of these retro properties make their way back over stateside too.
Yeah, because you also got Jurassic World, you got Shrek, which, in my personal opinion, I'd rather have Lord of the Rings. That makes better sense.
Oh, I completely agree. Yeah.
Obviously, they're going to have their own version of Waterworld. That's just the staple for every Universal park, no matter what. But the biggest one I'm excited for, don't get me wrong, Back to the Future is pretty much up there for me. But the biggest IP out of all this I'm super excited for, 007, baby.
I mean, if they're going to do a stunt show and like very much like the Bourne Stunt-tacular, I think that would be awesome. I
hope they do more than that. I hope there's some type of attraction or, at least one attraction. I would say, I don't know what it would be, but some type of attraction, maybe kind of like I don't want to say like a Monsters Inc. type of attraction, but maybe something similar to that, where you're kind of going through the world of James Bond. I would love to see something like that. Maybe like some type of walkthrough attraction as well, where you're kind of looking at different eras of James Bond with props, vehicles. You know, you
That'd be
have
cool.
characters. You know, obviously they're going to have merch, but 007 out of this entire park is my number one, like, anticipated right there.
No, I agree. I think that I'm very curious as to what they're going to do over there. I agree.
100%. The one thing I do want to speculate, because our last topic we're going to kind of quickly go through as HHN with the news that broke, is could this park, along with Epic, but probably Epic will have it at some point, but will this park in the UK have some type of HHN event, and will it be reaching into its roots on the UK horror genre or the European genre?
I wouldn't be surprised. It'd make a lot of sense. And they're going to take they're going to take that Halloween Horror Nights concept and take it all over the place. So I think it's very likely you see HHN out there, if I were to guess.
You imagine a house. I'm just going to throw it out there. Imagine a house of James Bond, or a house based off Lord of the Rings with the trolls and the what was that one character, the main guy that was like completely evil, had that wicked freaking helmet that flew on the dragon. What the hell is his name?
Oh, I can't remember his name. I know what you're talking about. I can't think of what his name is though.
Yeah, you know, seeing him flying around with the dragon. You imagine that?
That
dude?
would be pretty awesome.
Badass.
That would be, yeah. Or even a Jaws haunted house. That'd be awesome.
Oh, dude. Or what we've been talking about for years, at least at the Hollywood Park. You imagine a Jurassic Park?
Yeah, I was actually going to say that would be pretty cool. Dinosaurs
bloody,
jumping out and scaring you like crazy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Bloody velociraptors, blood dripping out of its mouth, chasing you through the fort. Dude,
that'd be awesome.
That would be freaking amazing.
That would be so cool. I agree.
Oh my God. But yeah, no, the possibilities are endless at this park. Like I said, I kind of feel just from this early picture, it honestly looks like they're building it exactly like Epic, where they can build stuff, but then also plan for the future. I love that.
Yep.
And
I think it's a very smart way to do theme parks.
Yeah. And obviously you can see down here, and again, this is not 100% accurate. I'm sure things are going to change, but you can see right here they have the classic archway, which I love that.
Yep.
I love
that. I thought they had the early concept art for Epic too. They kind of changed it a little bit as it got built, but yeah, they had that same kind of concept art for that one too.
Yeah, so I do love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, HHN is just where it's at. I want to pick your brain on that a little bit. So let me go back.
I actually have a heart out. I got to head out here.
Oh, real
quick. I apologize. What I will do though, because I do want to talk about HHN. Yes. I am planning on talking about it on my channel. So if you want to hop on with me this coming week, we can deep dive into all that. Or I will more than willing to come back on here. I just have a heart out. I got something I got to do with my wife. But I do. I love HHN. I'm so excited to go into all that stuff because we finally have all the announcements for it.
Well, with that, then we will continue this conversation on Jared's channel at Capture the Magic. Jared, it's always a pleasure having you on. I'm glad you were able to stay as long as you did. Where can everyone find you on social media?
Well, first off, thank you for having me on here. It's always a great time. Love talking theme parks with you, and speculating is one of my favorite things to do. But yeah, you can catch me on at Cap the Magic everywhere, including YouTube. I do daily videos over there. If you're looking for in-park tips for Disney World and Universal Studios, my wife and I have a podcast called Capture the Magic Podcast. That's at CTM Podcast on YouTube, where we have those episodes there. So plenty of content there. And then we can plan on, I think I'm going to do a live stream probably Wednesday evening, if that works for you. We can finalize it later. But yeah, we'll go through all the HHN stuff. And I'm very excited for that. But no, thank you for having me on here. It's always a good time. I love hanging out here and speculating and talking all this stuff on Sunday nights. And anytime you want me back on, I will be more than happy to hop on. And I know you and Tommy, we're going to all talk about your experience at the Horror Unleashed. Very excited to hear about that as well. So a lot of good stuff going.
So just to clarify on that, I just want to state I'm not going to be talking about, you know, our experience after the fact until we go on Jared's channel. I already promised Jared that me and Tommy are going to give our exclusive first thoughts about it on Jared's channel at Capture the Magic. So definitely stay tuned for that. And then also as well, I'm definitely going to have him back on. He's a great contributor. Like I said, he's what I call our Hey Bricky out in Florida with Epic Universe and Orlando and even Walt Disney World. He's just on top of it. But I'm your host, Theme Park Conductor. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Bluesky, and TikTok. And you can find me on X at Theme Conductor. You can also find me every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the West Coast for having amazing guests like Jared and so many others as we break down Universal, Disney, HHN, and then whatever comes our way for the theme parks. I want to thank everybody in the chat for watching, not only on YouTube, but X as well. Everyone stay safe, be kind to one another, stay cool or stay warm wherever you might be. And I will see you guys very, very soon. Have a good night, everybody.